And this lens has also one slightly special feature if you are Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And in this video, I'm gonna talk a bit about this Viltrox 16mm F1.8 fast aperture super wide angle lens. And the reason I'm a little bit excited is that I think this lens is probably the best value if you're looking for a full frame fast aperture super wide angle lens. But first, a disclaimer. This is a review sample from Viltrox. And this is not even a proper review. This is more like a user experience. I took a short road trip around Finland, visiting some friends and relatives. And during that trip, I shot some pictures on this lens. And this video and my experience is based on that. I'll put the link for one lab review down below in the description, so you can check that out if you're looking for some sort of formal test reports and extreme pixel peeping. Please do check that out. But before I talk about my user experience, I have to say a few words about the build quality because it feels so good. Of course, I can't know what is inside there, but when I'm holding this lens in my hand, it feels really good. It's all metal construction except for the lens hood, which is plastic. But everything else feels so good and solid and well put together. And based on how this lens feels in my hands, I'd say the build quality is up there with the best. This lens belongs to Viltrox's relatively new series of Pro lenses. And you can really feel that it's a pro-grade lens. They have even fixed the aperture ring, which used to be my standard complaint regarding Viltrox lenses, but this aperture ring has really super nice 30-click stops, which you can, by the way, declick if you prefer that for video work or some other work. And all in all, it feels so good in hand, and it's even weather sealed. And on top of that, this lens has pretty much every feature that you could hope for from a fixed super wide angle lens. I already mentioned the aperture ring that can be declicked. This has also two function buttons, autofocus, manual focus switch, and also this tiny LCD screen that can tell you all kinds of information, useful information like the focusing distance, depth of field, and other interesting things. And this lens has also one slightly special feature. If you are in manual focus mode, you can use the function button 2 to program two different focusing distances. The lens will then go from A to B and back whenever you press the FN2 button. Very handy feature for some video work or maybe focus stacking in landscape photography, and I'm sure you can figure out many other uses for that handy special feature. And the best part is that if you then move to autofocus mode, shoot a few pictures using autofocus, and then when you go back to manual focus, the lens will remember those A and B distances that you last used. This is a fast aperture super wide angle for a full frame camera, so it's not super lightweight or super compact. But what do you expect? If those are lightweight and compact your first priority, then you have to choose another lens. But if you want fast aperture, super wide angle, this is what you get. They all are pretty, big and heavy. The filter size is, let's say, 77 millimeters, and this weighs in at about 550 grams. However, the balance and handling is really great, at least on the Sony A7 Mark IV, which is my camera. And pretty much every Sony A7 camera is similar size or weight, so I would expect the balance and handling is very similar if you mount this on any Sony A7 series cameras. And when I'm recording this video, this is only available for Sony E mount. And of course, I have no secret behind the scenes information, but I expect that Viltrox wants to make this available also for other mounts, at least for the Nikon Z mount. I think Canon is out of the question because Canon stubbornly insists that no other lenses should be available for their R mount, which I think is stupid, but that is only my opinion, and who am I to tell what they should do or not? I guess they know what they're doing. The autofocus performance is a nice surprise because sometimes these fast aperture lenses can be a little sluggish when it comes to autofocus, but this lens is definitely an exception, a good exception. The autofocus, based on my experience, is fast, silent, and every Sony autofocus mode works really nicely, and I have nothing to complain. And I also made a short video autofocus test here in my tiny YouTube studio. This would be the type of video that I would shoot on this lens, and also in this test the lens performed really nicely, and again, a nice surprise. And now let's finally talk about the sharpness, distortions, backlight performance and all that. And like I said already, my evaluation is only based on eyeballing my road trip photos. And I'll put a link for one lab test down below, so please check it out if you want to see a proper lab test. And also, please do not ask about astrophotography, because I'm not really into that. And another reason is that in the summer here where I live in Finland, it's not possible to shoot astrophotography because it's not dark enough. Even in the middle of the night, the sky is too light for astrophotography. I can't see the stars no matter what. The sharpness and contrast are really superb right from the start, from the wide open f1.8. Naturally, when you stop down a couple of stops, you'll get slightly better performance, and typically for a full frame lens the sweet spot is somewhere between f5.6 and f8. There are no visible distortions. There's a little bit of vignetting, which is okay for me. I don't mind, because I usually add a little bit vignetting to my pictures, and with this lens I don't have to do that. So to me it's not a big problem. Remarkably, there is practically no bokeh fringing, and that is really amazing because most, even some much more expensive fast aperture prime lenses than this, exhibit quite a lot of bokeh fringing, which is notoriously difficult to remove in post, but can be notoriously distracting in some pictures, especially if you have some bright contrasty highlights in the background. Also, the backlight performance is really good. I can't see any bad flare or reflections. Of course, on a super wide angle lens, you will get some, on any super wide angle, you will get some flare if you really try. But I think this lens performs really nicely. And also the Sunstars come out quite nicely if you are into Sunstars. So I'd say the optical performance is pretty solid all in all. I think this is an excellent fast aperture super wide angle lens. It's sharp, contrasty, and no distortions. The optical performance is really great. The only kind of a downside is the big size and the weight. But then again, there are other options if you want something really compact and lightweight. But if you want a fast aperture super wide angle lens for your full frame camera, they are all like this. They are never tiny or compact. It is just a physical fact. And the best part is the price. About 500 euros or 550 US dollars. For that price, this is going to give Samyang, Sigma and Tamron a run for their money. And a lot of good competition, which is good for us consumers. And I'd say Viltrox is doing a really good job with their lenses. Every Viltrox lens that I have tested has been a very decent performer and I think they are determined to become something better than just another Chinese manufacturer. At the moment, there are no other lenses with similar specifications. There are two fast aperture primes that are wider than this. There's the Sigma 40mm F1.4 and the Sony 40mm F1.8. Both are more expensive than this. And then there are two 20mm primes, the Sony 20mm f1.8 and the Sigma 20mm f1.4. Both are narrower than this and more expensive than this. So if you are looking for a fast aperture super wide angle prime lens for your Sony camera, I think this lens is definitely worth a look. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video useful or entertaining, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.